Welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast. BrightWord is a leading platform for diverse storytelling, where voices from all backgrounds can share their unique narratives and connect with readers from around the world. Follow our regular podcast updates, where we strive to foster a literary community that celebrates creativity, inclusivity, and the transformative power of literature. Good afternoon, and welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast. I'm your host, John Lobb, and today a special return visit from Mr. Patrick Scott, author of A Just Revenge. Patrick, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, John.
Great to have you on again. And I know our readers have been enjoying the book, and I've seen positive reviews, so congratulations on the feedback you've gotten. Wanted to ask, based on that feedback, based on perhaps what you've heard since the book came out, has your perspective changed at all on the story or the way that you set up the characters?
Not really. Most people told me they liked the way the book flowed, and they were interested in how the characters were developed. And of course, I got a lot of questions as to whether or not I was related to any of those people.
Okay. Can you share the answer?
Yeah, I did all those things.
Okay, excellent. The truth revealed.
The truth revealed. Well, you write about what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my second novel, and that was about me growing up on the Feather River and rafting up and down the Feather River as a kid at 10 years old. I built my own rafts and stuff like that. You know, when you're a farm boy, well, you see farm boys up in Vancouver.
Yes, sir, I do. I understand where you came from. Anything that you would reconsider about the characters Sean Roberts or George Wescot, having written the book and having it live out there in the public for a while?
I think Sean Roberts and John Wescot were not separately identifiable as much as I would have liked it. I wish I could have separated them a little bit differently. Sometimes I think the readers are a little bit not sure as to who's Sean Roberts and who's George Wescot and where did George Wescot come from? Read it closely enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or if they didn't understand what a nom de plume is.
Mm-hmm. Anything you would change about the structure of the book, of the story, or the order of events?
There are probably some of the things I would leave out. I might not go into as much detail about the coming out parties and that kind of thing that Sean Roberts went to as George Wescot, but I used those as setup pages that ended up being a little bit more lengthy than probably they needed to be, but they did.
All in all, though, you're pleased with your final product. It doesn't sound like you would necessarily rewrite anything.
I wouldn't rewrite anything. No, I don't think a rewrite is appropriate considering how it turned out.
So that transformation, Sean's transformation into George, really involves moral complexity. How did you approach writing a character who blurs the line between justice and vigilantism?
Well, George Wescot came from having been attacked by a guy on the river, and he was being accused of having created a lot of damage to another boat when a bunch of us were sleeping on an island and throwing rocks at a boat. George Wescot somehow magically appeared, and Sean got stuck with the name as his own nom de plume to protect him from going to jail. And so he sent the police off to Marysville from Yuba City looking for George Wescot.
Gotcha.
So George Wescot just kind of hung on to me. Hung on to George.
Got it. Truly, the character came to life in a sense.
Yes, he did.
Were there any scenes that were particularly difficult to write for you, that you struggled to write?
Part of the parts in India were hard for me to write. When I lived in India, was a time of incredible loneliness and fear for my life. And if I could have avoided writing in about that time, I would have.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a part of a time that needed to be in there. It was all set up for getting Sean towards Los Angeles, which then got him to Europe, because Sean knew nothing about any of those places until he got there, because he came from this small town.
Mm-hmm.
Yuba City at that time was 1,400 people.
Wow.
And Sean was a football player and man about town, and pretty important as far as he was concerned, until he got into the big city.
So he went from the big fish in a small pond to a really small fish in a big world.
That's right. And he had to reinvent himself.
Yeah, as a lot of people have to do in life when you think about it.
And they do. Either you do
Mm-hmm.
it well, or you end up being incredibly frustrated, I believe. Don't you?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah.
I do, absolutely. Absolutely. The setting of 1960s San Francisco, where did that come from? Did you purposefully choose that era and that city?
Yes. Because San Francisco in the 1960s was a truly drug-ridden, out of teenagers all the way up through college students. There was a lot of drugs, a lot of sex. People didn't know about AIDS in those days, so sex was easy and often with a lot of people. And so it was a very freewheeling period of time for a lot of college students. You had 5 colleges sitting right there, and everybody who was at all groovy could go there, you know?
I love that term. I
You know,
believe that's a legal term, correct? Groovy.
that's right. So I think that San Francisco at that time precipitated the advent of gangs who could somehow use the looseness of morals coming from San Francisco to their perverted benefit, as they did in Hillsborough. Hillsborough was a very wealthy area south of San Francisco, within 30 minutes of San Francisco. And there were some incredibly wealthy people there who had ties to San Francisco.
Interesting. As the story progresses, we go from revenge to resolution. What message do you think it sends about accountability and about truly emotional closure in the story?
I don't think Sean reached any emotional closure until right at the end,
Mm-hmm.
when the boys were put in prison and he realized what those prisons were. He hated the way they treated the young women that he had met, and one of whom was an old ex-girlfriend. And the ex-girlfriend had actually broken his heart. But at the same time, he still had a lot of respect for her as a person. And they needed to be treated as badly as possible. Not killed, because that wasn't anything that Sean wanted to happen to. He wanted them punished justly.
Interesting. Interesting. How do you feel the themes that you write about, including class, privilege, moral decay, how do they relate to the United States as we sit here in 2025? How's that for a question?
That's why I'm laughing. Uh, and the answer to that would come from a person depending on where they sit on the political scale, I think. I think in our society, we've developed a lot of incredibly wealthy people who feel they have the right to utilize their wealth and take advantage of other people who don't have it and who don't have the power to protect themselves. And we could go on into taking Medicare away, et cetera, but I won't get into all that. But that's where your question is really asking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do people have a right to control somebody else's life just because they're very wealthy? And I don't think they do. I don't think they have the right to take people's privileges away, human rights privileges away, simply because they are wealthier and more powerful.
Appreciate your honesty, and I'm sure a lot of our audience would agree with you. Some may not, but some certainly would, for sure.
I have friends on both sides.
Yep, as do I. As do I. Did writing the book cause any reflection on your past life as an attorney or an athlete or a younger man?
It put some of my life into perspective for me. As a younger man, I had no clue as to what I was going to be doing past high school.
And that would be true for many young people, wouldn't you agree?
Probably. I mean, I didn't have parents who would say, you're going to do this. My father left when I was 10
Mm-hmm.
and left us basically penniless. So I had to make money to help buy food for the family and started working jobs at that age so my family could live. And my mother was an uneducated woman who finally got a job as a warehouse person. She was a very strong farm girl from Nebraska. So she ran a warehouse at a hardware store. And I take that kind of motivation from human beings as motivation for me to not quit. And that's the one thing that I learned growing up is to never quit, because eventually you're gonna win if you don't stop. You get knocked down, you pick your ass up and you go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry if that's a word I can't use, but
Feel free.
so, and there were a lot of times when I wanted to quit, but wouldn't, because I saw the value of continuing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, breaking my neck made me want to quit. There was a time I wanted to die because I'd broken my neck, my shoulders, my back, my ribs, cracked my head, and cracked my helmet on my bicycle. So it was a significant injury. And as I was recovering, pain was horrible and everything I did was horrible. And then I couldn't move. And I'd been this very vital physical person. And at the time, I couldn't move either arm. I still can't move my hands very well, but I couldn't move anything. My bowels didn't work. Nothing worked.
And yet you went on to have a successful career as an attorney and now a successful second career as an author. So thank goodness you recovered to the extent that you could and continued to live your life and enjoy your life.
Yes, and I've been married 40 years now.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
So a lot of things began to work when I got into a very severe rehab program, physical rehab. And that's what Sean would have done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was going to say, Sean, who crosses cultural boundaries and crosses the world. I mean, as you who went into the Peace Corps, I understand, perhaps there's a good portion of you in Sean.
Perhaps there is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the Peace Corps was a surprising experience in that I did not expect to be singled out as somebody different. But I'm a white man. India are brown people, and they discriminated against me by color, which I had never experienced before. And it was enlightening. And it forces me to watch my own racism.
Good point. Whether it be probably subconscious, but for all of us who happen to be the majority in an area, perhaps we don't realize how we interact with others of a different color.
And I think subconscious is the right word to use. For us liberals, as I say that in some sarcasm, we don't realize that we are being racist in, if nothing else, our thinking. Gee, I'm going to treat that person differently than me because they must be uneducated because they're brown-skinned. And I make a point of not doing that. And I try to catch myself if I see myself doing that.
Excellent, excellent. So, Patrick, if they were to make a film of the book, of the novel, have you ever envisioned who might play these characters?
Not really.
Okay.
No, I have had a film writer try to catch me in my first novel and catch that character in my first novel. He did a terrible job. So
Okay.
I think trying to write about somebody who is from a very poor environment to one who comes out is almost, like a story of, Don Juan or something like that. And I'm not that person, that's,
You stay true to yourself.
I try to. I try to. I mean, there are times that I'm arrogant, but
As we all are.
I've, we all grow up with our own disabilities, and I grew up dyslexic, so I had to learn how to read. And it wasn't until I was uh, through college almost that I started taking classes on how to read better, so that I could get over my dyslexia, so I could get into law school and graduate from law school. And I graduated from one of the hardest law schools in California.
Excellent. Congratulations. What a life well lived.
So far, my kids think so because they want to inherit something.
Well, maybe they like you just a little too. Patrick,
We
what's next? Have you thought about another book or what's on the horizon for you as an author?
John, that's a tough question and one I've thought a lot about.
Hmm.
Writing a book is a lot of effort. I don't want to repeat what I've already done. So I don't want to redo or rehash that type of character.
Hmm.
So finding something that's new and fresh has been a difficult experience. Or I was thinking of when I ran the Colorado River for 4 days. There were a lot of things that happened in 4 days on the Colorado River that were very magical and frightening simultaneously.
Sounds intriguing.
Colorado River and the Colorado Valley through which the river goes is amazing. The walls are like 100 yards high, and carved into the sides of the walls are rock faces that look like monuments carved out to human beings. And so I spent hours going down the river in my kayak floating when it was flat water and just looking at the walls and letting my imagination fly away with me.
Wow. I envisioned the title being 4 Days on the Colorado River That Changed My Life.
Could be. I'll remember that, John.
Okay.
I may steal it from you.
Okay. Feel free. Well, Patrick, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for paying a return visit. And I must say, you are a most intriguing individual and a most intriguing novel. We're so glad you're able to join us again.
Sure, if you get a chance to read it, borrow it from somebody or buy your own, and I would prefer the latter. Thank you very much, John. You've been a very pleasant host.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. We've been speaking with Patrick Scott, author of the novel A Just Revenge, available on Amazon, I assume, and
Yes.
everywhere fine books are available. Thank you again for joining us on the BrightWord Books Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.